Hello, everybody. I'm Claudia Kripa from ICON's Innovation Strategy. I work on, as few of you know, on social and business innovation and communication and dissemination activities in the new project. Today we talk about replication and how to, let's say, successfully plan, from demonstration to deployment, and then replication and upscaling of solutions and interventions in the project. I will be moderating the session, and we have the Readiness from engineering, representing the DEDALUS project. Margherita Fabri from Miro Consulting, representing the platform and circular projects. Stratos Keranitis from DOMEX, representing the InEEXs project. And Paula Zerli from New York University, representing SUPERSHINE project. So this is the agenda. I will try to be briefly and trying to have a very short opening and explain a little bit what we mean with replication, why replication usually fail, and how we can try to address that, in a different way to be successful. And then I'll leave the floor to the panelists for presenting the project and how they address replication strategies, and they're going to show us also key enablers and also drawbacks that you can face when talking about replication in a new project. But what we mean by replication, because it's kind of like a buzzword that everybody uses, but what exactly it means. So this is a common, I can share definition. So of course, replication highly vary depending on the type of project and the type of outcomes and interventions. But in general, we can say there is a process of successfully applying or adapting the strategies, technology, and results of pilot or demonstration projects to new contexts, so to new cities, new regions, new industries, and so on. But let's see why replication fails, because replication does fail. And even when innovation works, I'm sure you all work in very successful project where there's a lot of different type of innovation, but sometimes transfer such innovation to other contexts can be very difficult and can be easily a failure in a way. So we try to reflect upon why that happened and why few projects achieve widespread uptake approaching the end of the project and after the end of the project. And we thought about that. One reason is that replication planner often kind of retrofitted at the end rather than embedded from the start. So nobody talked about replication at the beginning of the project. It's something like, okay, let's think about it later. But instead, it's really important to think about really upscaled business and delivery model that can actually be upscaled later on. So it's very important to have a kind of forward-looking perspective and have a strategic mindset in a way. Usually success is defined as in terms of implementation, how the implementation went, how the implementation goes, and not on long-term uptake. The fact that technical readiness or technical success doesn't mean to have done societal uptake or ecosystem readiness for implementations. Assumption that others will just basically adopt once results are published. So basically, okay, I've done my work, it was really nice, and then for sure, those advancement in knowledge boost should be uptake from somebody else. And last one. Too little attention to all these aspects that are very important, such as regulation, funding, timing, and local politics. So what happens is that the solution or innovation basically are stuck in pilot mode, and it creates a replication gap. And to address that, I think it's important to think about replication on a more with a strategic and a systemic perspective. Considering, of course, first of all, different layers. So the macro, meso, and micro. So we talk about macro, of course, the national, EU, or regional policy. Meso, of course, the cities, the local governments and funding instruments, and micro, the stakeholders, the beneficiaries, users, and solution providers are actually involved in the intervention. Also to take into account the replication is not really linear in any way, so it's not really copy and pasting from one place to another. No? So replication doesn't mean repetition, so that's why it usually fails. And so the importance of like contextual information and analysis is key. And so it requires adapting and aligning with different aspects. Of course, the policies and the capacity of public and both public and private actors, the socio-economic context and community acceptance. This is something that we do like at ICON. So now in our social innovation team, we address this problem specifically to help to plan, good intervention or replication later on after the project. Timing with funding cycles and political agendas is also important, and of course, regulation, infrastructures, and business model. As I was mentioning before, planning like very strategic and business model can be upscaled from the beginning is very important, because sometimes it's easy to develop business or delivery model that are easier, maybe simpler to implement and adopt for the project. It's much more work and complex to develop models that can be good for the project, but also can be good for others. So it's a complete different effort. So here I put just like a few myths that, in a way ignore the complexity, of the real world adoption. So it's a kind of like a little bit of a repetition of what I just had, but if we work in the demo, others will pick it up. Not true. If we make the results public, someone will reuse them. Not true as well. Let's say replication planning for the funding of the project, very wrong. And the misconception that replication is actually developing a random communication toolkit at the very end of the project and very quickly. Well, it's not replication, basically. So what actually enables replication from, this is more like our perspective as icons in a way, is the early planning. So I'm trying to push also to consider the replication in the proposal phase as a also kind of leverage for thinking a bit more strategically when developing a proposal. Clear replication profiles, so stakeholders should be met like not in a random way, but should be really clearly, and potential adopter should really reflect upon it very well. As said, flexible delivery models are very important. Local adaptation with stakeholder through co-creation and thinking about co-ownership models and policy and funding alignment. Just quickly, maybe this could be useful for some of us, I don't know, but it is a available framework that in icons we use, and maybe you can as well leverage in your project at some point, what can be useful. So this is
Could add, because it was switched off.
Okay.
Okay, back.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry. That's bad.
So is a framework that can be used to basically stress test replication readiness, and it can be applied in any different sectors as well. So it's the rule of the 5P: planning, people, pathways, place, and policy. So planning, as said, replication is built from day zero, not post demo. So asking ourselves is replication is part of the project design, basically. That happened also. I work a lot with expectation activities, sustainability, business case, and all these activities in the project. They should be taken into account at the very beginning, and we should start to work on that at the very beginning, because if not, it doesn't work. And it doesn't provide any value added, basically. People, as said, like, really ask ourselves, like, who will actually replicate this, and if they have the capacity to do it, and which are like also, it's very important, the incentives. So which are like the incentive schemes, for others to replicate. Pathways, so it's more like related to the strategies, the models. As said, it's better when developing a delivery model, think about if the solution is, one size fits all, or is modular and adaptable in different contexts, because sometimes truth is that some things that some implementations, some solutions that are delivered in a project are not thought, to be adaptable to other contexts. Place as well, so aligning with the local context, and last but not least, the policy. So in a way, always check, and I'm trying to anticipate the regulation and incentives. I tried to be kind of quick but clear at the same time. I will just give the word to the panelists now to see the structure of each of the presentation. Apart from a short introduction of the project, we'll focus on the replication strategy, even though the project are at different stages of development, but that could be also interesting to see which type of replication strategies be put in place or will be put in place, and a reflection on lessons learned or enablers or drawbacks that have been faced. So I'll leave the word to Stratos first.
Yes.
You should click this. So thank you.
So hello, I'm Stratos Keramides from Domex startup from Greece. We participate in InEEXs project. We worked a lot during the development of the proposal, so we already knew that replication would be, let's say, a tough part. We started by developing a lot of, let's say, activities already from the proposal, connecting with potential replicators by pilot. And in the end, it didn't work like this. So just to give you an idea of what we do in InEEXs, we have 4 pilots that work with energy data, and we have a common blockchain platform where all the different energy services push the data on the chain. We do some calculations there, and we report the final calculation back to the target users. So this is the common aspects of the 4 pilots. Here I represent mainly the Greek pilot, which is business case 3. In this pilot, we offer our smart heating controller. It's a solution that is attached to natural gas boilers and electrical heat pumps, and it helps end users to get a better understanding of their energy savings. This is what is typically done by, let's say, smart thermostats, but what we do differently here is that we provide a way for the user to get reliable energy saving data. So we have a methodology that is implemented within our product. We follow this measurement and verification methodology to collect the data, process them, analyze and store the data on the chain. So whatever is stored in the end, an interested third party can cross-check against the initial, let's say, raw data. So in order to build a useful service on top of this, we rely on the energy efficiency obligation scheme, which is, let's say, the regulatory framework behind our service. Based on this scheme, obligated parties, mainly energy suppliers across Europe, they need to have a reliable mechanism to report the savings that are achieved by their end consumers. So imagine an energy supplier that has 1,000 consumers equipped with our solution. They have a way to collect the energy savings from all this data and, let's say, report the achieved savings to get a payback from this regulatory framework. What is currently the process, at least in Greece, it's a manual process. So they just report the data through a document with well-established, let's say, methodologies and assumptions, but it's open for, let's say, rejections by the authority that does the check. What we do is that we do the end-to-end reporting based on actual energy data that we get from the end consumers, and we help the supplier to report.
Is the business models that will be developed at the end of the project to foster financial viability and community participation of the solution. About the challenges, I'd like at first the regulatory framework that is very fragmented in Europe and and many novel technologies, as for example the hydrogen storage, face a very hard process to gather the approval from the authority. For example, in the Ocean demonstrator, we had to wait 12 months before receiving the approval from the government for this innovative technology, and this, of course, delayed the entire project. Another challenge is the financial incentives that are not still tailored for positive energy buildings project, renovation and reconstruction. And then I would say also limited knowledge. The limited knowledge of the stakeholders involved in the process that has to be enhanced to spread the use of these technologies, and also the user acceptance and engagement, because as I was saying before, is fundamental to ensure that the results of the project are really used in the future after the project is finished. Okay, then we have a circular project. As I was saying, this is a project again focused on the built environment renovation. Is in the Build for People partnership, and here we are 22 partners from 6 European countries, and we are developing different innovation for decarbonizing the built environment, and promote also circular, highly applicable and adaptable innovation. The core of this project is the development of a circular platform, an integrated ecosystem with different tools for different phases of building renovation. One of the tools is the Circularity Index Assessment tool that was created inside this project, and is one of its main results. And then we are also developing new materials, innovative materials with high performance. And we also have a strong component with social and policy innovation activities. Our approach is strongly driven by demonstration. So we have 2 large-scale demonstrators, one in Spain and one in Estonia. And we also want to define a clear replication pathway for circular renovation, providing other cities and stakeholders with models, policy recommendation, and business frameworks to turn innovation into widespread impact. Okay, so we are in the first phase of the project because we are now in month 17. So the replication, the real replication phase will start next year. So we are still at the beginning, we can say. But our approach is based on living lab methodology, where co-creation, testing, and validation with stakeholders and end user is at the core of the replication strategy, to ensure that the technology we are developing will be very useful for end users and stakeholders involved in the process. Then we rely on regulatory sandboxes to identify earlier in the project potential barriers coming from the fragmented regulation framework, and to promote good practice that would be sorry, I'm missing the word. To promote a good practice that will be at the end a deliverable with some policy recommendations for future exploitation of results. And of course, as I was saying for RENplusHOMES, another pillar of replication is of course the evidence from demonstration and digital tools. So the demonstration campaign that will start in the next month will be very important to test if the solutions that we are developing will work also in a real life demonstrator. The actors involved in this process are many. We have the demo owners, we have the local authorities and policymakers, we have the industry and the small and medium enterprises that will be the future adopters of these technologies or suppliers. We have, of course, the citizens and end user to ensure the social acceptance of the technologies, and also researchers and academia involved in the project to monitor the sustainability and the impact of the technologies. As I was saying, we are now in the planning phase of replication. We are identifying the stakeholder and engaging them, and we are defining the scenario for the future months. Next year, we will test, adapt, and validate our results through living labs. And finally, at the end of the project, we will develop a roadmap and the market uptake for our solutions. But our results will be also the policy recommendations I was talking before, and business models, of course, for scaling up, and also a framework for digital-based replication using our circular platform. So about the challenges and lessons learned since we are at the beginning of the strategy at the moment, I can say that some early insights are that the replication starts early, so we need to include requirements for scalability in the demo design, so in the proposal phase and at the beginning of the project. Data interoperability and digital tools are very important to ensure comparability and transferability between pilots and also with future demonstrators. And also the stakeholder alignment is very important, both local, regional, and also at European level, to prevent also future barriers. And from similar European projects, we can say that so more in general, the context matters. So the successful replication, as also Claudia was saying, depends on adapting the solution, innovation to the local context. And also the tools are very important. So we need multi-criteria tools to balance different factors, environmental, economic, and social, inside the same analysis and the same design. And also the early engagement of investors, of course, is very important to support a smoother market uptake. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Margherita. Are there any questions for Margherita? Okay, if not, leave the word to Paola for SUPERSHINE project.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Margherita. So my name is Paola Zerilli. I am associate professor in finance at University of York in the economics department. I am the scientific coordinator of the SUPERSHINE project. I talked about it earlier in another session, but now I'm going to focus on another angle. So this project, what we are doing is that we are working with social housing associations. I consider they are our partner as well, because they are doing the social engagement. And we are helping them in performing energy efficiency interventions in their buildings. This is the continuation of another project, but also we are going on another level, because SuperEye is another project, was Horizon 2020 that just concluded, for which University of York was the coordinator. We were focusing on the same type of intervention, but for buildings. In this case, we are focusing on districts, so also how the social housing buildings are interacting with the immediate neighborhood as well. So our lighthouses are in Denmark, in Italy, and Latvia. But since the beginning in the project, we had some fellow cities as partners. So the analysis hasn't been done directly on the fellow cities. Has been done mainly for the lighthouses, but we built it in a way that the replication was already embedded in the project. Actually, there is written also Ireland at the bottom. Ireland is not one of our, is not our fellow country, but they got involved later on, and I'll explain to you why and how. So just to give you an idea, this type of intervention, so it is our approach is multidimensional approach. So first we start with the engagement of the tenants through also the social housing associations. In Denmark, they are the same thing because the tenants, they actually have a share in the social housing association, and they are the ones who take directly the decisions. In the other countries are involved directly, even though they are not the ones doing directly the investment. So the social aspect. Then we have the technical aspect. Cartif and other partners, they are focusing on what type of interventions we are doing, but together with the social housing associations. It's not something that we are imposing from the top. We started with listening to their needs and what they wanted to achieve. Then we have the environmental impact. Circe, together with Cartif, also they are taking care of the environmental impact and the LCA, social LCA. And we, as York, we are working on, proposing some financing solutions for putting in place this intervention. So we spent at the beginning of the project loads of time. This project is concluding at the end of March 2026. We spent a lot of time working with our partners, the social housing associations, the associations of tenants, to see exactly what type of information we needed for our analysis and how best we could help them. And in this, we included also the fellow cities since the beginning. So we, at the beginning, we put together a survey. Actually, it's two surveys: one about the buildings, one about the districts, to see, what is the information that we can realistically collect from them, but it also needed to be a minimum that we needed for our analysis. From informations about the energy performance of the buildings, how old they were, what type of interventions they needed to be upscaled to a different level, to have deep retrofitting as well. So it took time already to collect the data from the lighthouse districts, and also we had various adjustments because there were mistakes, things that were not, very precise. But that, we understood that once we started doing the analysis. And then we started collecting also the data from our replication fellow cities. And then it came Ireland, because what happened is that among our partners, we have Housing Europe, and we presented our work with Housing Europe many times. And in one of these times, there was the Irish Association. Should I not moving?
No,
Okay.
not.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so the Irish, they got very interested in what we are doing because they are planning to have an intervention on all the stock all across the country. And actually, they contacted us saying that they wanted to volunteer a couple of buildings so that we could do the analysis for them, and so that they will start building their policies also and their financial planning around our advice. So here, just quick idea of what type of intervention we are talking about on the walls, on the windows, on the roof, particularly in Trieste. They are working on this, realizing these green roofs. And also interventions on the foundation. So these are the things that we have been considering. But the first step was calculating the potential energy savings. These are the annual per dwelling. Sorry, my assistant forgot to write the detail. So, and what happened is that at the beginning we did the calculation, I will conclude soon, sorry, for all the interventions all together, because for economy of scales, it is, the best, what works the best financially is to do everything together. But again, there, by collaborating with the social housing association, the tenants, we realized that is, an ideal, but in reality is not always possible, either because financially is not possible, or most of the cases is that the tenants, will be too disruptive for them, because we are talking about houses where people already live. So that's why we had to do the analysis also for single type of intervention and the financing for them as well. And this led also to some indicators that are important for this type of interventions for actually the tenant. So this is one of the indicators of energy poverty. And you see that the orange line, they are for, the amount of energy poverty measured as a percentage of residents unable to keep their houses cool during the summer or warm during the winter. It decreases dramatically after the intervention. You notice that for Denmark, the level is much lower, because the starting point for energy efficiency for the Danish buildings is much better, obviously. But for Italy and Latvia, we are talking about big numbers. Okay, so again, all this analysis we are doing also for our fellow cities and for Ireland as we speak. We had many meetings with them. Again, for Ireland, who was not our original partner, we had to have many meetings with them to explain both to the social housing associations and to the associations of tenants, how this analysis could help them and how they could take it forward. So that has been already done. So now we are just waiting for them to give us some data so that we can give them our advice. So this led to our SUPERSHINE blueprints that are we are preparing them. We are going to put them on our website that are very general and very flexible, and they can be adapted to many realities. But the most important thing, what we are going to have on our website, is the one-stop shop, which will be a legal entity that will survive the project itself. And this one-stop shop, what we'll do is that will provide all the analysis on all the dimensions that I just mentioned to any possible social housing association who wants to improve the energy efficiency of their buildings. And the main barriers that, so for now, will be done, as I mentioned, for the fellow cities and for some of the building of the Irish Social Housing Association. But the barriers that we already had to deal with were mainly the change in regulations. So the constraints that were imposed on the social housing associations in borrowing money, and the way we solved them was by doing a further financial analysis, allowing for these barriers. So there is a solution to everything, but the collaboration with the private sector financing is key, and understanding the return on investment for them and the benefits for the entire community is another aspect. So there are so many aspects that need to be clarified, and our one-stop shop will do exactly that. So I had another slide, but I have already said whatever I needed to say. But I'm
Thank
here,
you,
so
Paola.
if you have further questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? No. Oh, yeah, here.
Well, wait, is there a common juice coming out of it? I mean, you listen to each other's projects. So would you have something to add following this presentation? Oh, is there a fifth one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, after that. Sorry, I'm
Yeah, I'll leave it more
spoiler.
for the DEDALUS project. Yeah.
I have a
to
request.
Diego.
I have one question for your project.
Yes.
So for a fellow city,
Mhm.
what do you need from them to provide you? You mentioned energy data.
Yes,
In which format?
we have. I can show you. We have our survey on our website. We have 2 surveys, and there are all the questions there that we
So
need.
they just submit, let's say, aggregate data that they have already collected through a survey.
Uh, in some cases, they have to collect the data. It's not aggregate data. It's per building. Our analysis is per building, so it's very specific.
That's why I'm asking, because
Yeah.
it will be really tough.
I know it's been tough already for the lighthouse districts, but I mean, if they can do some estimates if they don't have the precise data. So our analysis won't be as precise, but there is a pro and con in everything.
I'm thinking that for a city that has the raw data
Mhm.
and they are willing to use your tool, it
Yes.
will be really tough to submit the data to your system.
Mhm.
That's why I'm asking which is the way you are using to do
In
it.
some cases, they are collaborating already with some energy service companies,
Yes.
and the energy service companies, they have the data, and we are collaborating directly with them,
Yeah.
with the energy service companies. And sometimes they have to send someone to collect the data. The weather condition data, we can retrieve them from various,
building data.
yeah. But the building data, but
That's
sometimes they have some data about some representative buildings, so we do the analysis for them, and then they adapt them our results to whatever other building they need to do the financing for.
Okay.
So that's
So this is the way to do it. You narrow down the solution to a template reference building,
Yes.
and you ask them to do it
Yes.
for that building.
yes. So often they choose the building that is a building for which they have already some data, they
Yes.
have some idea, and then they adapt whatever we give them. Yeah. We work with what we have.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's welcome, of course. It's an opportunity to discuss. So, good afternoon. It's better to stand. Good afternoon. My name is Diego Arnone. I'm here as a representative person for engineering and informatica. That is the coordinator of this project. DEDALUS is the name of the project. That is not SUPERSHINE.
No.
So it's on the other side. Okay, so project identity, the coordinator, and the title. That is the one I want to start from. Data-driven residential energy carrier agnostic demand response tools and multi-value sets. Of course, these titles are always full of buzzwords.
It's a tagline.
But
Sounds like
they have a
ChatGPT
meaning.
actually to me, sorry.
What?
It sounds like those words that they find that you use ChatGPT because carrier
No, at that
agnostic.
time, not yet. The next proposal, of course, but not yet. No, this basically, these apparently buzzwords explain what is the project about. Because we are talking about the residential buildings, so occupants, managers, and so on, tenants, and demand response. Demand response in the context of different energy carriers, so heat, gas, and of course electricity. So you can understand that if we talk about replication or replicability of results, we must take into account that there are different contexts, different regulatory frameworks, different countries, different environments, and of course, there are a number of different variables that must be taken into account when we move a tool created for a specific pilot in a specific country in a specific content to another one. So there are difficulties about that. This is the funding, 6 million, 36 months. The project is going to be closed on April 2026. 23 different participants coming from 10 different countries. Okay, the main objectives of the project, using social science and humanities as a tool to engage people, because of course the engagement of users is a crucial aspect of the project, because of course we are talking about dynamic response that basically affect the behavior of people. So we must try to convince them, to involve them, and also to take from them their belief, their needs, their desires, and so on. Combining the outcomes of other previous projects by adding building level data-driven models, algorithms, and flexible assets, digital twins. We want to be compliant with the energy data space concept. So the idea is to have as much as possible a connection to the data space via connectors, data space connectors. Of course, the technological part, that is a delivery of data-driven, value stacking, cross-stakeholders, cross-commodity, cross-value, coming back to this course about backwards. But this has many chain demand response algorithms, models, and ICT-based services. So different type of services based on different type of data sources in order to feed digital twins, nudging applications, something that can push people to change their behavior in order to address demand response request. The business model is quite important because we know that remuneration is not so easy in this context. You can ask people to change their behavior in terms of energy consumption, but how much can you pay? Of course, they are talking about little amount of money, and usually people are not interested in something like that. So you must consider a number of different aspects related to building a community, being more aware about environmental issues, but also some kind of rewarding or recognition of the effort spent in demand response. So a number of things that make it challenging also the definition of proper business models. And of course, the participation to other initiatives and the cooperation with other projects like the one that we are experimenting today. So these are the different pilots across Europe. We have five different front runners that are the first pilots where we deploy our solution, and two multipliers or replicators. Basically, we are experimenting the possibility to replicate what we did in the first 5 pilots in the other 2. So it's an internal experimentation about the replication. So replication is complex. Success depends on technology, society, governance, and policy alignment. This is in general, but also in the case of the DEDALUS project, the replication strategy basically considers 3 different axes: the social part, the technological part, and the business part. The objective, DEDALUS services and proposed business models to reach their full potential, strong belief from partners in social replication, business not so much. The demonstration that we did in the different pilots, so 5 + 2, proved the technical feasibility, but this doesn't mean that all the results, and especially the benefits that we get by deploying our result can be replicated, or that we can guarantee market or business sustainability. So, limitation to the replication. We are talking about demand response, so we must refer, first of all, to user acceptance. Because if in some cases, certain type of tools, applications, nudging application and so on, are valuable and provide benefits to a certain kind of users, this doesn't mean that other users, depending on their background, on their sensitivity to certain topics, on their, let's say, context or education or whatever, they can accept to use the same applications. Property rights, of course, lack of data, because sometimes you have a lot of services based on AI that can be properly trained, the model that can be trained, algorithms that can be trained, because you have data. In case you move somewhere else and you don't have data, or data are not available, this is an issue that is a barrier to replication. No awareness. And in specific situations, since we perform a sort of segmentation of our users, some users are quite aware of the issues, they know about the environmental issues, they know about demand response, but in some cases, this awareness is not there. So this is a barrier to the replication. Regulatory barriers, of course, because we have demand response that is very developed in some countries, in others is not considered yet, or is allowed in a very limited number of situations. Non-flexible contract, because sometimes we talk about demand response because we suppose that the provision of energy, the provision of gas, the provision of heat can change depending on the behavior. But sometimes this is not true, because the contract is always the same, is not flexible, is not dynamic, so makes no sense. Energy digital literacy, again, about the awareness of people. People sometimes don't know what we are talking about. It's something that must be in some way trained, and too complex, because if we talk about complex application, complex technologies, people can be not available to manage this kind of applications. This comes from an interview to the same people involved in the project. So these inputs come from the DEDALUS partners. And as you can see, which are the key aspects of replication? And we can read interoperability, engagement, nudging, flexibility. So these are the main words that come out. In a free text, people can write whatever they want. So we can see that interoperability is one of the most important keyword, as much as well as the engagement. Because if people are not engaged, the result of demand response is absolutely not valid. And which are the obstacles? Again, user acceptance, not easy, because we also are experimenting inside the project, moving from the front runners to the multipliers, that what we assumed as correct and valid for certain type of users is not for others. User acceptance is a quite relevant topic. That's the reason why in the project we have an entire work package that is about the application of social science and humanities tools, so co-design, co-creation workshop. This is a current topic that we had also in another workshop. But it's quite important, because since we are talking about people, in order to improve the user acceptance, we must start from a design that involves them from the beginning. Just talk to them, try to explain, try to train, and then start together to create something that in the end will be accepted better than putting technology in their hands and say, okay, let's use this, adopt this technology, you will see that you will have benefits, because it doesn't work like this. Okay, the next step, I want to remind that DEDALUS is in a mature way, in a mature phase of the lifetime, but it's not And yet we cannot talk about lesson learned unless the things that we are experimenting by moving from one type of pilots to the other type. So we are in the phase of defining the replication strategy. So what poses the greatest challenges to replicate the DEDALUS project? Please consider unsuccessful outcomes and obstacles. And again, we see access to data, lack of European flexibility standard, market structure, not clear value proposition, also the market structure. Because sometimes we talk about flexibility service based on the response. You can sell, you can do this, you can do that. Where? It depends on the country, it depends on the rules of market, so it's not so easy. Lack of infrastructure, we need a lot of data, but do you have sensors? Do you collect sensors? Do you have data? Do you manage them? A low level of user acceptance, again, lack of economic incentives, because sometimes if you don't have incentives to promote certain kind of technologies will never find the level of maturity for a widespread adoption. Different regulation frameworks and lack of awareness, again, not finding a convincing value proposition for the user, and we come back to the concept of business models. Because defining business models for this kind of technology is not easy. It's not easy. It's still an open issue. The technology and contracts are not always connected to interest, understanding, use of tenants. Again, the flexibility of contract and so on. Because we talk about flexibility and sometimes contract. Do not consider this aspect. Oops. So dialogue is crucial. So communication, trying to talk to people, to explain, and changing also the way to communicate the same concept to different people coming from different countries, from different backgrounds, from different education, from different awareness, and so on. So basically, this communication is a process that must be always alive. It's running. I heard about living labs, something like that. These are the only way that we have to keep alive the result of the project and try to adapt them and replicate them in different contexts. Replication needs living tools. So basically the topic is always the same, interactive platform that can be updated with new policies, standards, and best practices as they emerge. Something that must be living, something that must change on the basis of the changing of the environment. Replication of DEDALUS services, this should be the last slide. So DEDALUS services have been successfully developed. This is about the history of the project. What's happening in the project? The service has been successfully developed and deployed in the respective front-runner pilots and are currently being replicated in multiple pilots or replicators, I think we can call them. Differences in the levels of residents' engagement, the technical requirements, and the available data on the pilots have led to different software developments adapted on a case-by-case basis. So adapting to the different cases is crucial because otherwise it doesn't work. Insight for the replication activity from the replication activities among the pilots will provide feedback for replication outside the boundaries of the DEDALUS project and promote the market uptake. So this is a long process. Of course, the strategy must be better refined during the last month of the project. The deliverable expected for this strategy is in the end of the project, so in month 36, it is April 2026. But we are in the right direction, and we can see that some of the decisions that we are taking, or the strategy that we are defining, is very similar to what we already had from the other project. So I think that that's all from my side. So if you have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
If not, I'll just wrap up very quickly. Because I guess also it's a bit late. I just to wrap up and provide like a framework or just discuss across projects. So we said that replication is not basically plug and play. So even very strong innovations or less strong innovation face uptake challenges due to local realities, policy fragmentation, or capacity gaps, or as we said now, lack of data and the lack of engagement with potential stakeholders and beneficiaries. we said, as also Margarita was said already, like the replication was that's one planned from the beginning, and the importance of availability of data, as Stratos was mentioning, and the usage of like digital tools and data-driven approaches and interactive platform, as Diego was just mentioning right now, is key, of course, for planning your replication. Engagement, of course, has been brought up like many times today because it's of course, very important to understanding the cost and in the context and actually, develop a proper strategy, a proper replication strategy. And last debates, of course, we talked as just now about the flexibility and of the business model and the difficulty sometimes of developing delivery models that have to take into account like many different aspects. And so it's not really easy to develop like delivery models that can be also upscaled in other contexts when the variables will basically radically change, and territorial and regulatory diversity, which will require that whole modular replication pathways. I had another couple of bits, of course, that maybe is more like looking forward to the work that maybe we can do together as well in follow up in other projects. Of course, mentioning as Paula was discussing just now about like different also innovative financing and different financial models to be taken into account. And this just the last bit from my side, maybe reflecting upon how much like trying to work together and cluster as much as possible among European projects and other initiatives is very important, because is sometimes it's kind of like a fragmented market, because we do very nice and innovative implementations and work, but when it comes especially to replication and replicating, is key, of course, to look at each other and talk to each other, understanding, maybe taking bits from one project and the other and trying to put together the information and the knowledge that we have to actually maybe create like, models, aggregated models that take into account different perspectives. So I think that will be very important for the future. That's it from my side. I don't know. Thank you for being here, especially this last session of the day. So we are all very, very tired. And I don't know if you have any questions. Here we are.
Well, actually, one question is the one I asked earlier, if any of the projects would like to comment on the others. And the second question is, if any, I think probably you, your company, since you are a startup, is, let's say, greater touch with, let's say, the startup ecosystem, this kind of, if you have found there some possibility, even a part of what has been developed to be used somewhere, pivoting, okay, this doesn't work, but maybe we can take it, we can have another application or something.
You mean testing our own solutions in other markets and see
Yes,
if it works?
so, yeah, part of the solution, or
This
a variation or something.
We started developing our solution for end customers. So selling directly to end consumers is very difficult for a startup. So then we pivoted, and now we are in business to business. So we work with partners that have a lot of end consumers under their portfolio. So this is how we started working with energy suppliers. So pivoting is an integral part.
Yeah.
Any other comments on?
I think that this is the starting point for us to, as Claudia was mentioning, to learn from each other, because I think that we have been meeting similar barriers and exchanging ideas on what has been working as a possible solution and what has not. I think that is can be helpful for all of us. So, yeah.
And another thing I think is important, because I go kind of often to events or initiatives from new initiatives. So it's very important, I think, to talk about like failures as well, and maybe a bit less about success. Successful stories are very important, but also discussing about why and how things went terribly wrong. It can be really helpful to learn from each other in many ways, I think.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.